Every night the number on the scale was smaller. 90 kilos, then 86, then less. The old man was disappearing 1 gram at a time, and 5 of the most expensive doctors in Japan could not say why. They had a word for it. Idiopathic, that is the word doctors use when they mean, "We do not know, and we have quietly decided to stop looking." One night shift nurse refused to stop looking, and what she found in a teacup would put a powerful man on his knees and send another one to a grave he had dug for himself. The most important thing in a sick room is not the machine. It is the person willing to watch. Before I tell you what the nurse saw that 5 doctors did not, do this for me. She was junior. She was overlooked. She was told, in that room, to stay in her lane and take the vitals and let the real doctors think. She did not listen. And she was right. Subscribe so you don't miss the moment she proved it in front of every person who told her to be quiet. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight. I want to know who was in the room. Let me take you back to the first night she walked onto that ward. Her name was Naomi. She was 29, and she was the best nurse on the night shift, which is to say she was the best nurse in the building and got none of the credit for it. She had trained hard and far from home. She noticed things. It was a gift and a curse. She saw the small change in a patient hours before a monitor did. She read a face the way other people read a chart. On her first night on that ward, she caught a man's heart about to fail, a full hour before the machine did. She just knew. His color, his breathing, the way he gripped the rail. She called it early, and she was right, and a doctor took the credit. That was fine. She was used to it, being right in the dark. Unnamed by morning, it was the shape of her whole career. The patient in the private room at the end of the hall was not an ordinary patient. His name was Rio. He was old, and he was wasting away, and he was the father of the most dangerous man in the city. Everyone on that ward knew whose father he was. You could feel it in the way the doctors walked. Careful, a little afraid. Downstairs, in a waiting room built for one family, sat Rio's son. His name was Sato. He ran things that people did not say out loud, and he was watching his father vanish, and there was not one thing his money or his power could do about it. The doctors had a plan, and the plan was to give up gently. They had run every test. They had found nothing they could name, so they had landed on the softest lie in medicine. It is his age. It is his time. Make him comfortable. The lead physician was a man named Dr. Hayashi, who had gone to the best schools and never once been wrong in his own opinion. He had decided the old man was simply dying, and Dr. Hayashi did not enjoy being asked to think past his own conclusion. Naomi took the night shift in that room, and she started to watch. She watched the way only a night nurse can. In the long, quiet hours, when the doctors have gone home and the family has gone home, and it is just her and a sleeping old man and a machine that beeps. She read his chart front to back. She read it again. And on the third night, she noticed something that was not in any of the tests. The old man had good days and bad days. Everyone knew that. But the pattern of them was strange. On the days he ate only what the hospital gave him, he held steady. Sometimes he even brightened. On the days after his family brought him food from home, a special broth, a tea he had loved his whole life, he crashed. Hard, weaker every time. Doctors do not see that pattern. Doctors read numbers on a page at 10 in the morning. They are not there at 3 in the morning, watching an old man sip a tea a relative brought him and getting sicker by dawn. Naomi started writing it down. Quietly, a private log. What he ate. When he ate it. what his body did after. Night after night, the picture got clearer and colder. The old man was not dying of age. Something was making him die. And it was coming from outside that hospital, in a cup, from someone he trusted. She knew what she was looking at. She just could not believe who would have to be behind it. There was a nephew. His name was Kenta. He was Sata's cousin, all charm and empty eyes, and he was the one who brought the tea most often. He sat by the old man's bed and held his hand and looked, to anyone watching in daylight, like the most devoted family in the world. He stood to inherit a great deal if both the old man and in time his troubles went away. Naomi did not want it to be him. Wanting has nothing to do with what is true. So she did the thing a junior nurse is never supposed to do. She took her concern up the ladder. She brought her log to Dr. Hayashi carefully, respectfully. She laid out the pattern, the good days and the bad, the timing that lined up too well to be nothing. She did not say the word poison. She was too smart for that. She only said, something he is being given may be hurting him, and I think we should test it. Dr. Hayashi did not even look at the page. You take his blood pressure, he said. You empty his bag. You do not diagnose. Do you understand the difference? Stay in your lane, sweetheart, and let the people with medical degrees do the thinking. He handed the log back without reading it. He told her that if she raised this nonsense again with the family, in their grief, he would have her taken off the ward. Then he walked away to be right about something else. Naomi stood in that hallway holding a notebook that told the truth, and no one with a title would open it. She did not cry. She had learned a long time ago that crying only tells people they won. She had a choice. Drop it, keep her job, and let an old man die on a schedule. Or go straight to the one person with more power than all of them and tell a mafia boss his own family was killing his father, with no proof. On the word of a night nurse he had never once noticed. She thought about the old man's face. She went to find Sata. Getting to him was its own kind of terror. She was stopped by two large, quiet men who did not like surprises. She said she was Rio's night nurse, and that it was about his father, and that it could not wait. Something in her voice got her through the door. Sata looked up at her, gray with exhaustion, a powerful man with nothing left to be powerful against. He had been told to prepare for a funeral. And here was a nurse he had never seen, holding a cheap notebook, shaking a little, saying the last thing he expected to hear. I don't think your father is dying of old age, Naomi said. I think someone is poisoning him. And I think I can show you. The room went very still. A lesser man might have thrown her out. Sata was not a lesser man. He had built a life on reading people, on knowing in 1 second who was lying and who was not, and this woman was not lying. She was terrified, and she was telling the truth anyway, which is a specific and rare kind of brave. He told his men to leave. He told her to sit. He said one word, show me. She showed him. The log, the pattern, the good days on hospital food, the crashes after the tea, the name she did not want to say and said anyway, because he deserved the truth more than she deserved to be comfortable. Sata listened to all of it without moving. Then he asked her one question, very quietly. Can you prove it? Give me the tea, Naomi said. The one from home. Before anyone knows, we looked. They tested it. Quietly, a private lab, the kind a man like Sata could make move overnight. And the result came back the next day, and it was worse than either of them had let themselves imagine. The tea the devoted nephew brought to his dying uncle's bedside, cup after loving cup, held something that does not belong anywhere near a human being. A slow, patient thing. The kind of thing that kills so gradually it looks exactly like old age. which was, of course, the entire point. The doctors had not missed a disease. There was no disease. They had missed a murder, because they were looking at a chart instead of at a man. Sata did not explode. That was the frightening part. He went cold and quiet and precise. But before anything else, he did something Naomi did not expect. He stood up and he bowed to her. A real bow. Deep, held. "You saw my father when no one else did," he said. "Including me. I will not forget that. But first, we save him." And they did. They changed everything. Only food that Naomi prepared or watched being prepared. Nothing from home. Nothing from Kenta. Nothing from any hand that had not been checked. And slowly, day by day, the impossible thing happened. The old man stopped shrinking. He steadied. Then he started to come back. Color in his face. Weight on his bones. A spark in an eye everyone had written off. The doctors called it a mystery. Naomi and Sato knew it was not a mystery at all. It was just what happens when you stop feeding poison to a man. Sato sat with his father through those nights, and Naomi was there for most of them, and something grew in that quiet room that neither of them named out loud. He learned how she took her tea. He noticed she never ate until every patient was settled. He noticed she left the last bite of everything, an old habit from years of never being sure there would be more. He never said a word. He only made sure, from then on, there was always more. 2 feared men had come into her life, and only one of them had ever seen her. And it was the one holding his father's hand at 4 in the morning. One night the old man woke and mistook her for someone long gone. He held her hand and called her a name from 50 years ago. Naomi did not correct him. She just stayed. She hummed low, the way you do for a child, until he drifted back to sleep. Sato watched her do it from the doorway and said nothing. But something in his face changed that night. He had spent his whole life around people who wanted things. He had forgotten there were people who only gave. But the nephew still came, smiling, with his tea, not yet knowing the game was over. Except Kenta was not a fool. He felt the ground shift under him. The old man was getting better, and that was impossible. Unless someone had stopped his tea from working. So he started watching the night nurse. He found her in a corridor one evening and stood too close. He asked, smiling, whether she was sleeping well. It was not a question, it was a promise. Naomi understood exactly what it meant. She told Sato that same night. By the next evening, 2 quiet men were walking her to her car in the dark. Kenta never got the chance to keep his promise, and Sato let him keep coming for a few days. He let Kenta sit by the recovering old man and hold his hand and pour a cup no one drank. He wanted him comfortable. He wanted him certain. He wanted the whole family gathered before anything happened, so that what happened would happen in front of every last one of them. In the open, on the record, the way these things should. The reckoning came at a family dinner. The kind that decides things. The whole family was there, at the long table in the old man's house. The elders. The cousins. Dr. Hayashi, invited by Sato with a politeness that should have frightened him. Kenta, at his uncle's right hand, glowing with false devotion. And Ryo himself, thin but upright, at the head of his own table for the first time in months, watching his family with clear eyes. Sato stood. He set a lab report on the table, and a notebook, a cheap one, full of a night nurse's careful handwriting. He laid it out the way you deal cards, the pattern, the tea, the lab result. The inheritance Kenta stood to gain. He did not raise his voice once. He did not have to. Kenta's face did the raising for him, going white, then gray, then the color of a man who understands he is already dead and is only waiting to be told the hour. You held his hand every day, Sata said, and poured this into him every day, and called it love. You almost took my father from me 1 gram at a time, and you would have. Except for one person in this room none of you ever bothered to look at. Then, he turned to Dr. Hayashi. You told her to stay in her lane, Sata said. You handed the truth back without reading it. You would have signed my father's death certificate and called it his age, because a nurse was beneath your attention. Every school you went to, and she saw what you could not, because she was willing to watch, and you were not. You will never touch a patient of mine again, and you will thank her before you leave this house. The great Dr. Hayashi, who had never once been wrong in his own opinion, stood in front of the whole family and thanked a night nurse he had dismissed. He said her name. He said it correctly. It was the first true thing he had said on that ward. What happened to Kenta is not shown here. It is enough to know he never poured another cup for anyone, and that the old man he tried to erase outlived him by many years. Rio, the old patriarch, rose from the head of the table. He was thin, and he was slow, but he crossed the room himself, and he took Naomi's hands in both of his. They told my son to bury me, he said. You told him to look closer. I have 3 doctors with famous names and 1 nurse who gave me back my life. Guess which one I will be thanking in my prayers. Naomi did not gloat. She had only ever wanted to be right so an old man could live. And he was living. That was the whole of it. That was everything. She did not stay a night nurse much longer. Sata saw to it, quietly, that the woman who saved his father never went unseen again. And in the years that followed, in a house with a garden the old man could finally walk in, the boss and the nurse built something slow and real. Here is the thing about being overlooked. The world confuses a quiet job for a small mind. It decides the person taking the vitals cannot see what the diploma missed. It is wrong. Over and over. And it costs lives to be wrong. Medicine is not the machine. It is not the degree on the wall. It is a human being willing to sit in the dark and watch, and to say the true thing out loud when everyone above says be quiet. 5 famous men read the chart. 1 overlooked woman watched the man. And that, in the end, was the whole difference between a funeral and a garden. Now tell me, what was the moment you stopped scrolling? The notebook handed back unread. The result of the test on the T. Or the old man crossing the room to take her hands. Tell me in the comments. Share this with someone who was ever told to stay in their lane when they were the only one who saw the truth. And if you want to know what Sata said to Naomi the night his father finally walked in the garden, say part 2, and I'll tell you the rest.